Hello Bloomington, I'm Mayor Tim Busse, and this is the Council Minute for the week of August 3rd. This week's City Council meeting included a lot of development activity, an update on the city's budget, and discussions about how the city staff and City Council engages our community. Let's get to it. The City Council received a monthly update from Steve Peterson, co-chair of the Community Budget Advisory Committee. This 9-person group of residents has been working with staff to understand the budget challenges for the coming year, 2021, and to make recommendations to the City Council for the city's budget, level of services, and property taxes. The discussion this week focused on Council's thoughts about the preliminary tax levy for next year. In September of each year, the City Council has to set the maximum amount of taxes that can be collected for the next year. Then, when we adopt the final budget and tax levy in December, we can reduce the levy, but we can't go any higher. Because the city expects much less revenue from next year's taxes collected at our hotels and entertainment venues like Nick Universe, there is a big hole in the budget. And that means we're going to have to either cut some services, ask taxpayers to pay a little bit more, or find some spot in between. Co-chair Peterson will take what he heard from the City Council back to the Budget Advisory Committee, and the committee will return to the City Council later this month with a recommendation for what that preliminary tax levy should be. One thing that hasn't slowed down during the pandemic so far is new housing development for Bloomington, and that development activity is for new multifamily residential buildings. At the meeting this week, the Council took action to move forward on 3 different developments totaling 590 units. Lyndale Flats is a 4-story, 81-unit affordable housing development that was approved by the City Council last year. The apartment building will take shape on the northwest corner of Lyndale Avenue on West 94th Street, right across the street from Fong's. It's a lot that's been vacant for many years. The developer is working towards financing options that would allow starting in spring of 2021. The action taken by the Council provides preliminary approval to issue revenue bonds, or what's called conduit financing, to help finance the development. Conduit financing allows the developer to use the tax-exempt status of the city while the developer is responsible for paying the debt. A public hearing to approve the development and the conduit financing will occur later this year. Be sure to stay tuned. The Park and Fly remote airport parking lot near American Boulevard and 34th Avenue, which has been in operation for 3 decades, will be redeveloped for residential and commercial uses in several phases. Phase 1, which is planned to begin by next summer, is a 6-story, 181 apartment building developed by the Rosa Development Company. Phase 1 will be located along American Boulevard East with convenient access to the American Boulevard 34th Avenue light rail transit station, and 20% of the apartments will be affordable. The Council's actions set the timelines for the interim use permits for the properties, which will determine when the Rosa development projects must be started. Across the street from the Rosa development site, south of American Boulevard, is American Square. American Square is a 2-phase, 2-building residential development. Phase 1 will be a 6-story, 242-unit market rate apartment building, while Phase 2 will be 5 stories with 86 units of affordable housing. Phase 1 is planned to begin construction this fall, and Phase 2 is planned to follow next summer. The development takes advantage of the great views of the Minnesota River Valley, and it's also within easy walking distance to the American Boulevard 34th Avenue light rail transit station. The Council action this week established a tax increment financing plan to help this project move forward. These projects are continuing the strong progress Bloomington is seeing in our commitment to focused renewal of the community, one of the City Council's strategic priorities. The 3 projects will also add more than 200 units of affordable housing, helping to meet an overwhelming need in our community for additional affordable housing. On a related note, the Council will be meeting with the Bloomington Housing and Redevelopment Authority on Monday, August 10th, to continue the discussion of Bloomington's housing goals and policies. The City Council received a report from staff this week on the many different communications and outreach tools the city uses to share information with residents and businesses and to engage with members of the community. Our manager of the city's Outreach and Engagement Division, Melissa Wurst-Prasad, also provided an in-depth look at the work her team has been doing, especially during the pandemic and social unrest of this summer, to build relationships with individuals, groups, and organizations in Bloomington. Now more than ever, those relationships are so important, and we're very grateful for the work being done to build trust and connections. The Council also discussed one of the ways we communicate with residents. If you've watched City Council meetings, you know that a regular part of our agenda is to receive public comment. According to the City Council's rules of procedure, the public comment portion of the agenda is for residents to address the council on issues of city business that are not on the agenda. In other words, making the council aware of new issues that are of concern to residents and have not been raised before. This week, the City Council spent some time talking about how we can provide opportunity for residents to make sure their concerns are heard and to do it in a way that provides constructive conversation. If you've watched, you know that our current way of doing things does not always provide constructive conversation. After a really good discussion about what we mean by engagement, what ways we have to make sure people are heard, and how we might do things differently, the Council asked staff to bring back some ideas to modernize our process. And I say modernize because our current process for public comment, it really is a relic of the past. It was developed in a time before email, before virtual meetings, and certainly before social media. The reminder for you is that the City Council is accessible to you through many different means, and we value your input. Well, that's a wrap on this week's Council Minute. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Be well. Stay safe, Bloomington.